So this is the last video in the 3-video series on looking at using Vasari as a tool to do simulation at the building programming level. And in this last video, we're going to be looking in particular at the Analyze Massing Model tool set. So to do this, again, we're continuing on with the same file that we've been working with. The first thing we're going to do is enable energy model. And then I'm going to select my mass, and the first thing that we need to do is add a series of floors so that Vasari knows what it is doing an analysis on. So I'm going to click the Mass Floors tool, and we are going to work with this as a 2-story building. So I'm selecting levels 1 and level 2, and it's immediately going to make some basic modifications to the overall design based on assumptions that are pre-built into Vasari. So let's look at those assumptions very quickly here. I'm going to go back to the Analyze tab, and we're going to look at energy settings. Underneath energy settings, we can establish our base parameters within this dialog box. First, we know that this is a school university building that we're working on, so I'm going to set that. The ground plane is at level 1. Let's look at the other important pieces of information here. Our total percent glazing, the default is 40%. I can modify that to a new number if I would like. Just go ahead and set OK to that, and you can see immediately how it's going to update and modify the model. Let's go back to the energy settings tab and let's turn that to 40% for this project. We're going to assume that that's about correct, but we're also going to add in some skylights as well. So under the target percentage of skylight, I'm going to raise that number up to about 10% and say OK. Oh, and just before I hit OK, we can also make some basic assumptions on the HVAC system. I'm just going to leave it as the default for right now, so we can look at the basic information that we're going to get back from this analysis phase. So I'm going to click OK, and you can see it's also added skylights in, 10% of the roof area as skylights. The next thing that we're going to do is look at the potential of editing a single face within the overall model. So by selecting, I'm going to use the tab button and select a single face. If I scroll down in the properties setting for the single face, I can change my energy model value from the overall energy settings to by surface. At this point now, this surface is going to use sort of an individual approach. So I could say we want the glazing on that particular wall to be at 80%. And it will modify that single wall. Again, at the base programming level, there might be some minor changes that you're doing with surfaces. But for the most part, the default values should get you everything that you need overall, unless there's a special circumstance. If you know you have a particular view, or if you know you have a particular space on one side of a wall that's going to need more or less openings. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and click the Analyze Mass Model button. If you haven't logged into your Autodesk account, you'll need to do so at this time, because what this is preparing to do is upload the model to the Autodesk cloud and then run that through a annual analysis. So we're going to run this name as HSA Test 1. I'm going to click Continue. And now we're going to wait patiently, not real patiently, but patiently-ish. And as I open this up, we can see HSA Test 1. It's actually processing the information. So if you're more familiar with rendering a file or something like that, then you can read this sort of as Vasari actually creating a rendering or something. Same kind of thinking, except instead of rendering an image, we're actually running a simulation based on local weather data, the building configuration, the type of building, all going into a process that's going to give me some basic feedback in terms of how the building is going to perform. Now, we can get incredibly advanced with Vasari and look at specific spaces and zoning and those types of things, but this particular set of lessons is really about using simulation at the early phases of design, at the programming phases of design, and generating an understanding that the basic configuration of a building, the early design gestures that we make, can have a dramatic impact on energy usage. So the report that comes back from the cloud is incredibly detailed and has a lot of information on it, especially looking at numbers like life cycle energy cost. It breaks down how our energy is spent, what our peak loads are. It goes through windrows distributions, temperature ranges, an incredible amount of data that's generated in a very short amount of time. To get this file outside of Vasari, what I would recommend that you run is the export utility, which will create a PDF of this file. So I'm just going to keep this as tutorial Vasari 1, that's the name of my file, HSA test 1, that was the name of the test that we sent to the Autodesk Cloud. I'm going to click Save. And now if I navigate to my desktop, where hopefully I saved that file to, I can launch the PDF file, the PDF reader, which on my computer is Acrobat. And if all goes as planned, we should be able to read this information independently of Vasari in a file that looks something like this. So that's the basic information on getting Vasari up and running as a building simulation tool, in particular looking at the programming phase of design. Again, if you guys have questions, drop me a note, dbh01@drury.edu.